Withdrawal isn't loud. It doesn't slam the door or shout for attention. It's quiet, controlled, intentional. And when a man pulls back, not to play games, but because he's finally honoring his own value, it triggers something she didn't anticipate. Today, we're going to break down the psychology of that moment. What really happens inside her when your detachment is no longer temporary, but real? Not reactive, not emotional, but rooted in something she can't control. Your peace. Because once you stop showing up for someone who took you for granted, her world changes. And it's not the absence of you that hits hardest. It's the realization that she no longer has power over how you show up. Number one, the shift she didn't see. The shift she didn't see coming. She thought she had time. She thought you'd always be there. So when you stop chasing, stop checking in, and stop trying, it catches her off guard. Suddenly, the man who once overgave is silent. This isn't about revenge, it's the quiet reset of a man who found value in stillness. A man practicing Stoicism doesn't make noise to prove a point. He makes space for himself. At first, she might brush it off. Tell herself you're just busy or you're trying to make her miss you. But as the days stretch out and your silence remains steady, it starts to feel different, heavier. It's not the kind of silence that begs for attention. It's the kind that no longer seeks anything at all. And that's what unnerves her. The man who used to double text, who used to ask if she was okay, who used to show up just to stay in her orbit. He's now centered in his own world. And this time, he's not pretending. Stoicism teaches us that peace is not something we beg for. It's something we cultivate. And once you've tasted that kind of calm, the need to explain yourself fades. You begin to move with intention. You stop reacting and start observing. And in that quiet shift, she feels the void. Not just your absence, but the absence of being needed by you. That changes everything. Maybe she looks at her phone expecting a message. Maybe she posts something to see if you'll bite, but you don't. Not because you're angry, but because you're finally at peace with not forcing connections that don't value you. And the man who no longer needs her validation, that's the man who suddenly becomes unforgettable. She didn't expect that kind of withdrawal. Not the kind that comes from detachment, not bitterness. And that's the shift she didn't see coming. The moment you stopped needing her and started choosing you. The presence she didn't expect to miss, number two. The presence she didn't expect to miss. She was used to having you there. Reliable, steady, always within reach. Like background music, she stopped noticing. But then you withdrew. No announcement, no drama, just space. And in that space, something unexpected happened. Her thoughts got loud. She posts something with meaning, hoping you'll respond like you used to. A caption with layers, a photo meant to trigger a reaction. But nothing happens. No view, no comment, no ripple, and that's when it hits her. Not just that you're absent, but that you're detached. Not to punish, but because you've realigned your focus. This isn't distance out of spite. It's the result of a man who's found his center. You're not cold. You're composed. Not silent to create confusion, but to protect your clarity. That's the difference. That's Stoicism in motion. Not in words, but in behavior. You're no longer asking to be seen. You've become comfortable not being understood. There was a time when you would have sent the heartfelt text, the emotional reasoning, the closure she never asked for. But now, you've evolved past that stage. You've stopped needing to explain your value, and she can feel that shift. And here's what most men overlook. Your withdrawal doesn't just create distance, it creates reflection. She starts replaying the moments, the words, the things she brushed off. She wonders if she missed something important because now she can't predict you. And when a man becomes a mystery again, he becomes unforgettable. This isn't about getting her back. It's about getting you back. You're not trying to trigger guilt or longing. You're simply standing where your self-worth finally told you to stop walking forward. She's left facing the void where your consistency used to live. And that contrast, it lingers. So don't mistake your stillness for doing nothing. You're doing something most people never master. You're choosing peace over noise, dignity over reaction. Let her feel the emptiness not as punishment, but as perspective. Let her face what it feels like when a man no longer overextends to prove his place. Because the truth is, when she finally starts to feel that shift, when the man who once pursued now stands still with purpose, it leaves a mark. Not because of games, but because of growth. And that growth, it doesn't need to announce itself. It's sensed. So if this message speaks to something real in your life, show support by liking the video. Drop a comment below with your thoughts or simply type, "I don't need noise to be heard." We're just getting started. And the next part of your evolution is where things truly begin to change. Her mind fills the gaps. Number 3, her mind fills the gaps. You didn't explain, you didn't plead. And because you left without a script, her mind begins to write its own. Did he lose interest? Did I go too far? That silence you left behind doesn't just sit there. It echoes in ways she never expected. At first, she might brush it off. She tells herself you're just having a moment, that you'll reach out again like you always did. But days pass and nothing comes. No text, no check-in, no reaction, and slowly uncertainty creeps in. Her confidence starts to crack. That's the power of a man who withdraws without a scene. You didn't slam the door. You didn't fire off a final message to make her feel guilty. You simply chose stillness. That choice alone speaks volumes. A Stoic man doesn't withdraw out of bitterness. He withdraws because he understands that chasing someone who doesn't value presence is a form of self-betrayal. Instead of demanding to be seen, he steps back and lets the silence speak for him. And here's the thing most people overlook. When a man like you finally stops explaining yourself, she has to. Not to you, but to herself. She starts piecing together every little moment you once let slide. Every time she ignored your effort, every time she minimized your emotional needs, and now, without your energy there to absorb her chaos, she's left with the mirror. And it's uncomfortable. You didn't leave to punish her. You left to protect your peace. That's the Stoic difference. It's not about making her miss you. It's about refusing to remain where you're undervalued. And the irony, that quiet exit leaves the loudest impression. Women don't remember the man who begged to be understood. They remember the one who chose himself when she thought he never would. Think about it. When you were always there, always showing up, your presence became expected. Background noise, familiar, taken for granted. But now that you're gone, truly gone, her mind has nothing to anchor itself to. So it spins. She replays old conversations, rereads messages, stares at your social media in silence, wondering how a man could just stop with such calmness. But this is what withdrawal looks like when it's real. It's not a tantrum. It's not a test. It's a transition. You chose not to explain because you no longer needed to. You've outgrown the need to convince someone of your worth. That's the quiet evolution of a man who has embraced his own value. And now, without your words, your presence, or your validation, she has to fill in the blanks, and often that's when the regret begins. Emotional rewind begins. Number 4, emotional rewind begins. She replays the last things you said, the moment you started to pull back. She remembers when you were patient, present, and loyal. Now she sees that your loyalty wasn't endless. It was a choice. A Stoic man doesn't hold grudges, but he remembers lessons and eventually he acts on them. What's haunting her now isn't just your absence. It's the sudden contrast. You were the man who stayed steady when things got hard, the one who gave her the benefit of the doubt. The man who didn't just speak of love, but showed up with consistency. And yet, without yelling, without warning, without turning cold, you stepped back. That's what shakes her. The absence of drama makes your withdrawal feel even more final. She rewinds every interaction like she's searching for clues. Was he already slipping away when I rolled my eyes at his efforts? Did I miss the moment when he stopped feeling appreciated? These aren't just passing thoughts. They're emotional echoes. You see, when a woman realizes that a man who truly cared is now gone, her mind doesn't rest. It replays the past, not for nostalgia, but for answers. Because deep down, she knows the change wasn't sudden. She just never believed you'd really go. And that's the quiet power of the Stoic man. He doesn't punish. He doesn't make a scene. He simply honors the truth of the situation. He gave, he endured, he waited. But when he saw that his presence was no longer met with respect or mutual effort, he chose to step away, not out of pride, but out of principle. He understands that inner peace isn't something you negotiate, it's something you protect. The Stoics teach us to accept reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. Epictetus said, "When someone shows you they value you little, walk away. You are not a tree. You learned, you adapted, and you finally stopped making excuses for her inconsistency. Now, as you withdraw, not to manipulate, but to reconnect with your own center, she begins to see the full picture. She realizes that your patience wasn't weakness, it was restraint. That your love wasn't desperation, it was depth. And that your silence now, it's not emptiness, it's reflection, it's strength. She may not say it, she might not reach out, but she feels it. And while she rewinds the memories, hoping to find a version of you still waiting, you've already pressed play on a new chapter, one where your peace isn't up for negotiation. The unfamiliar weight of regret, number 5. The unfamiliar weight of regret. When a man withdraws for real, regret replaces assumption. She didn't think you'd actually go. And now that regret sits heavy on her chest, it's not just sadness, it's realization. The kind that creeps in slowly like the silence after a storm. She replays your last words, your last efforts, the tone in your voice when you were still trying back then. She thought it was safe to assume you'd stay because you always did, because you showed up, forgave easily, and didn't make a fuss. But that was before you changed course. Before you stopped arguing, before you stopped showing up for someone who didn't notice you were running on empty. And that's what makes it different this time, because you didn't leave like someone who's angry. You left like someone who's done. And there's a difference. A Stoic man doesn't chase chaos. He doesn't beg for understanding. And he doesn't withdraw to punish. He withdraws when staying means betraying himself. And in that quiet act of removal, he chooses alignment over attachment. She starts to feel it when the patterns change. No more late-night check-ins. No more just making sure you're okay. The space you used to fill is now blank. And that blank space forces her to face the reality. Your loyalty was never guaranteed. It was a daily decision you made. And the moment it stopped being mutual, you stopped making it. Regret, when it's real, doesn't scream. It sits in the stillness. She sees you weren't trying to be needed. You were trying to be respected. And when she didn't meet that, when she dismissed your quiet frustration or took your presence for granted, she thought you'd keep coming back like always. But Stoicism teaches us that freedom is found in releasing what weighs down the soul. And no matter how much you loved her, you weren't willing to carry what wasn't yours anymore. Maybe she thought she had time to figure things out. Maybe she thought the dynamic would shift back in her favor. But now that your energy is no longer orbiting around her validation, she begins to miss something deeper than attention. She misses your calm, your presence, your unwavering steadiness. That more than anything is what starts to hurt. Not just the man she lost, but the version of herself she became in your absence. The one who's now learning the hard way that a good man doesn't leave in anger. He leaves in peace. And peace, once it's tasted, is rarely traded back for noise. And now take a breath and really think about this. Silence isn't just absence. It's truth made visible. When a man chooses peace over pursuit, it speaks volumes. So, pause here. Reflect on what this shift means, not just for her, but for you. What does it take to walk away, not in bitterness, but in clarity? What part of this story resonated with you the most? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Or if you're not sure what to say, just type, "Peace is my power now," to claim your growth. Because in the next part, we're going even deeper into how your absence becomes more than a message. It becomes a turning point. Let's keep going. Number 6, her ego starts to tremble. Her ego starts to tremble. She expected you to chase. That's what she used to do. You were the steady one, the man who showed up even when she pulled away. She knew how the cycle played out. She would retreat and you would come closer. She could be cold, vague, even dismissive. And still, you'd try to understand her, fix things, or prove your worth. That rhythm gave her confidence, not just in the relationship, but in her own ability to keep you within reach. But now something's different. Her message goes unanswered. Her story reply gets seen but not acknowledged. The little bait she used to cast, those half-hearted check-ins, those indirect invites to talk, are met with silence. Not anger, not sarcasm, just nothing. That quiet startles her more than any dramatic goodbye ever could. Her ego, which once felt fed by your presence, is now starving in your absence. This is where the shift begins. Her ego starts to tremble because she realizes something's off. You're not reacting like before. And it's not a trick, not a strategy. It's a transformation. You're not pretending to move on. You actually are. You've withdrawn in a way that doesn't leave breadcrumbs, no cryptic posts, no emotional outbursts, just a calm, firm retreat. And that unsettles her. She starts asking herself questions she never had to ask before. Did I push him too far? Why doesn't he care anymore? Is he seeing someone else? But what haunts her most is the possibility that you've finally seen your own worth and that you've stopped seeing her as your center. That shift isn't just felt. It's felt deeply, especially by the ego. Because her power didn't come from love, it came from your attachment. And when a Stoic man detaches, the entire dynamic changes. A man grounded in Stoicism doesn't ghost out of bitterness. He doesn't detach to cause pain. He does it because his soul no longer aligns with the chaos. He doesn't argue with the ego, hers, or his own. He simply refuses to be ruled by it. He chooses peace over proving a point. He understands that real strength isn't in chasing what doesn't want to be held, but in walking away from what keeps him small. That's what truly shakes her. Not your anger, not your words, not even your silence, but the fact that you no longer need her validation. And once a woman feels that you are no longer trying to earn her affection, the foundation her ego stood on begins to crack. She may still smile, still post, still pretend like she doesn't care. But behind those layers is uncertainty. A slow, quiet unraveling. Because once a man like you, who once gave, tried, and waited, chooses stillness over pursuit, his absence becomes louder than his presence ever was. And that's when her ego starts to tremble because she knows. Deep down, she knows. This time, you're really gone. Curiosity turns into obsession. Number 7, curiosity turns into obsession. She checks your profile, your stories, your last scene. Wonders why you look so calm, why you haven't said anything. The mystery you've become because you didn't explain, didn't react, starts to consume her. It starts small, a glance at your page here and there, but then it becomes daily, then hourly. She rewatches that last story you posted, dissecting your facial expression, the background music, even the timestamp. She's trying to find clues. Clues to understand how a man who once gave so much has now gone completely quiet. That silence, that calm detachment, it stings in ways she didn't expect because you didn't yell, you didn't block her, you didn't post cryptic quotes or emotional breakdowns. You simply withdrew. And the more composed you appear, the more chaotic she feels inside. It doesn't make sense to her ego. You were supposed to reach out. You were supposed to chase. You were supposed to explain why you left, but instead you left her with questions. And now she's addicted to the chase she never thought she'd have to make. Here's the thing. A Stoic man doesn't announce his every emotion. He doesn't play games or drop breadcrumbs. His strength lies in restraint. In knowing that mystery, when genuine, not forced, speaks louder than overexposure ever could. He doesn't move in silence to manipulate. He moves in silence because his peace no longer needs an audience. That's what shakes her. Not the absence of your words, but the undeniable presence of your discipline. And this is the twist she never saw coming. While she's losing sleep, checking if you've watched her story, asking her friends if they've seen you with someone else, you're out there rebuilding, refocusing, re-entering, not to make her jealous, not to win her back, but because you finally remembered who you are without the noise and without knowing it. That very silence has become the loudest echo in her life. Curiosity becomes obsession when you no longer feed the need for attention, when you stop responding on cue, when you let your absence do the explaining, because a man who's grounded in his values, who walks away not to hurt her, but to protect his inner peace. He doesn't have to speak to be heard. His silence tells the story she never expected to read. Number 8, the fantasy of you grows. The fantasy of you grows stronger, stronger. Ironically, now that you're gone, you're more present than ever in her mind. It's a strange thing, isn't it? When you were there, consistent, reliable, loyal, she didn't fully grasp the depth of your presence. She may have thought you'd always be available, that no matter how distant she became, you'd wait, that your patience was endless. But then you withdrew. Not with anger, not with drama, just a quiet, firm shift. No explanations, no begging, just distance. And now your absence has created space. Not just physical space, but emotional space. And in that space, something powerful starts to grow. The fantasy of you. She begins to remember all the parts of you she didn't fully appreciate. The calm way you handled conflict, the loyalty you gave without conditions, the subtle strength you carried without needing applause. You become, in her mind, the man she didn't bother to understand until now. You see, Stoic men don't announce their evolution. They don't need to. They grow in silence, guided by principle, not ego. And when they walk away, they do it with clarity, not chaos. That kind of departure leaves a deeper impact than any words could. She starts wondering, was he the stable one? Did I overlook someone rare? And because you didn't plead for her attention, she's now giving it to you, even if just in her thoughts. She might scroll through old photos, reread old messages, replay small, quiet moments that once felt routine, like the time you stayed up late just to make sure she got home safe, or how you always tried to understand her, even when she made it difficult. These weren't grand gestures, but they were real. They were the kind of things a man rooted in Stoicism does. Not because he expects praise, but because they align with his values. Now she imagines the version of you that has only gotten stronger in your silence. She wonders who you're becoming without her. And here's the twist. She's more drawn to you now, not because you're trying to win her back, but because you've moved on without explanation. That mystery, that emotional restraint, that silent self-respect, it creates a powerful pull. A Stoic man knows that the right people will see his worth when their vision clears. Sometimes that clarity comes too late. But he doesn't wait for that. He lets go with dignity. And in doing so, he often becomes unforgettable. Not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't say. Take a moment to sit with that. Let it sink in. Not just what she's feeling now, but what your silence represents. This isn't about playing games or making someone miss you out of pride. It's about how true presence is often felt most in absence when it's backed by peace, not pain. So, let me ask you, have you ever experienced this shift yourself? Have you ever walked away not to teach a lesson, but because you finally started honoring your own? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts or simply type. Silence speaks louder than explanation. Let's keep this conversation going because your journey, your clarity might just be the mirror someone else needs right now. Number 9, she tests the waters. She tests the waters. Quietly, quietly. A random hey, a meme she never used to send. A perfectly staged selfie posted at just the right hour. It's subtle, almost unnoticeable to the untrained eye. But if you've ever known a woman who's unsure, you'll recognize it. She's trying to reopen a door without knocking. She doesn't want to be vulnerable just yet. So she flirts with possibility. She sends out signals, not confessions. What she really wants to know is simple. Are you still watching? Do you still care enough to respond? But here's the thing. This time, you're different. You don't take the bait like you once did. You've stepped into a new version of yourself. A man who no longer entertains half-hearted efforts. A man who, through the quiet discipline of Stoicism, has learned the power of restraint. You're not angry, you're not cold, but you are calm. And in that calm, you've become incredibly hard to shake. A Stoic man doesn't leap at every breadcrumb because he knows the difference between attention and intention. He doesn't act out of fear of being forgotten. He acts when something aligns with his principles. That's the beauty of true detachment. Not in being numb, but in being selective. You've tasted the peace that comes from not reacting, from not needing to be seen just to feel valid. And now, ironically, she's the one seeking your gaze. This subtle shift stirs something in her. When you were always available, your presence became background noise, something she assumed would always be there. But when you withdrew fully, not out of spite, but out of clarity, you changed the entire dynamic. Now she doesn't know where she stands. And that uncertainty creates tension. Emotional tension. The kind that lingers long after the meme has been sent, after the story has expired, after the hey goes unanswered. She might not admit it out loud, but this quiet testing is her way of saying, I still want to matter to you, but I don't know how to say it. And yet, your silence isn't cruel, it's disciplined. You're not ignoring her. You're honoring yourself because for the first time, you've drawn a line and you're not crossing it just because someone jiggled the handle from the other side. So yes, she tests the waters, but you don't dive in because you finally realize the man who swims toward every splash loses sight of his own depth. And you've chosen to anchor yourself in something far more powerful than reaction. You've chosen presence without pursuit. And that is what she feels most deeply now. Not your anger, not your sadness, but your unshakable stillness. She feels the void and the value, number 10. She feels the void and the value. When you were there, she didn't see you fully. Now that you're gone, she feels the void you left behind. And in that emptiness, the truth appears. You mattered more than she admitted, more than she allowed herself to feel while you were still around. Because back then, your presence was familiar, constant, like a song playing softly in the background. She knew it was there, but she never stopped to really listen to the words. It was only after the music stopped that she realized how much it had meant to her. Now that you've withdrawn, not with bitterness, not with loud declarations, but with quiet certainty, she begins to notice the small but powerful ways you used to show up. The late-night check-ins, the calm energy you brought into chaos, the way you respected her space yet still made her feel emotionally held. She starts remembering things she never said thank you for. And that regret, it grows louder in the silence you've left behind. You didn't leave to teach her a lesson. A Stoic man doesn't act from wounded pride. He acts from clarity. He sees when his energy is no longer met with the same care or intention. And instead of begging for appreciation, he chooses distance, not to be cruel, but to preserve his own peace. He doesn't demand to be valued. He lets his absence reveal it naturally. It's not about control. It's about self-respect. And here's the thing most women don't expect. When a man like you truly detaches, it's not temporary. It's not a game. It's a shift. And that's what makes it hit differently. She might reach out with casual messages, old memories, or even subtle jealousy. But deep down, it's not about starting a new conversation. It's about feeling your energy again. Because when a Stoic man leaves, what disappears is not just his presence. It's the steady hand, the open heart, the quiet strength that grounded her without needing applause. She begins to see it now, that your calm wasn't indifference, it was discipline, that your silence isn't avoidance, it's healing. And in that realization, she feels a depth of loss that words can't fully express. The void you left behind, it's not empty. It's filled with the weight of everything you were and everything she no longer has. That's the moment the value of a man is truly felt. Not in the noise he makes while staying, but in the peace he takes when he walks away. And now I want you to pause for a moment. Think about that kind of presence. The kind that doesn't need to shout to be remembered. The kind that doesn't demand attention yet leaves a lasting impact when it's gone. That's what real masculine energy looks like when guided by principle, not pride. If you've ever been in that position, choosing peace over proving your worth, take a moment to reflect on what that taught you. Or maybe you're there now, quietly walking away from someone who never really saw you. Either way, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. What part of this resonated most with you? Let's continue the conversation because your silence, it speaks, but so does your story. And that conclusion brings us to the truth most never see coming. Your silence isn't empty. It's full of meaning. It's not revenge. It's not a tactic. It's the final act of self-respect. When a man chooses stillness over reaction, presence over pursuit, and peace over performance, he becomes someone a woman doesn't just miss. She re-evaluates. What once felt so secure now feels distant. What once was familiar becomes unforgettable because you didn't just walk away, you rose. And that kind of elevation can't be undone. That's not a loss for you. It's a gain in clarity, strength, and personal power. If this video spoke to you, if it helped you understand what it means to truly withdraw with dignity, don't keep that insight to yourself. Drop a comment below and tell us what resonated most with you. Hit the like button to support the message. And before you go, check out the recommended videos on screen. They're there to guide you even further on your journey toward peace, strength, and purpose. Keep walking forward, and as always, protect your energy. We'll see you in the next one.